The Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to Matthew. Jesus said to his disciples, "About the day and hour no one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. For as the days of Noah were, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing until the flood came and swept them all away. So too will be the coming of the Son of Man. Then two will be in the field, one will be taken and one will be left. Two women will be grinding meal together, one will be taken and one will be left. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour." The Gospel of the Lord.
The first time that Jan and our children and I went to Door County, and this is 25 years ago or so now, we were struck by how many people name their summer cottages or homes. And some of the names are, predictable, like, Island View, Towering Trees, and Whispering Pines. And some of them are, a little more at ease, and some are whimsical, some are descriptive of the setting. And we pondered what we would name our home. Our home with 3 little kids under the age of 6, constant frenzy, life that was out of control almost all the time, and we finally settled on the name for our home being Wits End. That'd be the easiest just to say, well, we're at Wits End. We've named every home since Wits End. But I heard some years later about a retired Episcopal bishop who, with his wife, moved to the small hill town of Sewanee, Tennessee, which is the home of the University of the South, an Episcopal college, as well as one of our Episcopal seminaries. And when they got there, they did 2 things. They bought a home in which to live, and they bought cemetery plots in which to be buried. And then they put a sign out naming their home, and they gave it the wonderful name, Meanwhile. Living in the meanwhile. Isn't that a wonderful name, especially perhaps for a retirement home? And that comes to my mind today because here we are, the first day of a new season, the first day of a new Christian year, this New Year's Day, this first Sunday of Advent. And we find ourselves in the meanwhile, in the meantime, in the time between the times. We all know that Advent has as one of its main foci leaning toward, anticipating, getting ready for Christmas Day, for the incarnation of God in human form as a weak, humble child in that shed in the small town of Bethlehem. We all know that Advent is leaning us toward that day. But did you notice that our lessons today on this first Sunday of Advent don't include anything about John the Baptist proclaiming the coming one, nothing about the angel Gabriel singing his sweet song to the scared teenage girl Mary, nothing about anticipating that stable in that small town, nothing about the birth. Instead, today, on the first day of the year, our focus in our lessons is on the end of time, which is the other great focus of Advent season. We find ourselves during this season, more than perhaps any other time of the year, in the meanwhile, in the meantime, having, in a sense, left a place already but not yet reached another place. We are in the time between the times, this season of being awake and alert, of anticipating, of expecting, of preparing and longing and leaning both into the past and into God's future. Advent, in this regard, is one of the most poignant of all seasons because it does have these two different things upon which we focus. Our hearts, our souls, our spirits. We are very much in the meanwhile during this poignant and pregnant season. And did you notice, though, again, those readings today, the ones we just heard from Isaiah and certainly our gospel, paint a picture of what is to come. They're rather different pictures, though, aren't they? Isaiah talks about how on the day of the Lord, on the end times, all of the nations will stream to Zion and will look up to the holy hill of Jerusalem, that symbolic and physical manifestation of God's presence. And in that day there will be complete peace and concord, unity and hope. People will beat their swords into plowshares, their spears into pruning hooks, we are told. That marvelous, beautiful vision of what awaits us when the full manifestation of God's love and grace and holy reign are completely manifested and made known. But then Jesus paints a rather different picture, doesn't he? When he talks to his disciples about what the end times are going to come, first of all, he says, no one knows when it's going to happen. Not the prophets, not you guys, not even the Son knows when it's going to happen. But it's going to be like that thief in the night. There'll be two men out in the fields. One will be taken, one will be left. There'll be two women milling. One will be taken, one will be left. People are going to be like all of those clueless folks who were just going about their daily lives when the flood came and Moses and his entourage floated away on the waters. I don't like that picture as much as the one from Isaiah. It's rather more bleak, rather more black and white, and it sets us up, so to speak, for anxiety, doesn't it? But instead, let's ponder what Jesus is really saying. At the very end, when he says, simply, be awake, be alert. We don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know how it's going to happen. We don't know what it will look like. And so therefore, live every moment as if it could come tomorrow, this afternoon, this morning. That's a little bit difficult, isn't it? To live every moment as if we are waiting for the return or the presence of God, and yet isn't that ultimately the life of the Christian journey? Not simply to open up little leaves on an Advent calendar, but to live Advent lives of constantly waiting and longing and looking and being open to the ways in which the one who came and who will come comes now. Advent isn't just about longing for the past and the birth of Jesus or even anticipating the end times. Yes, we talk about it quite a bit. In fact, the Lord's Prayer, every Eucharistic prayer talks about when Jesus will come again in clouds of great glory and so forth. But that's not necessarily what Advent is all about in terms of our daily experience and existence. We are called to live Advent lives, not just in this season, but throughout the year. Because the one who came and the one who will come, comes. Often in ways we miss, often in ways we don't anticipate or expect. We might be reading the morning paper, we might be paying our real estate taxes, we might be going about the mundane rhythms and routines of our daily lives and miss those moments when the holy breaks in, as the holy does, always has, always will. Those encounters where there is that grace or that hope or that unexpected light that shines into our lives. That's what it means to live an Advent life. I think it's appropriate that Advent, of course, falls during the month of December, the very end of November, because, here we are, the darkness is encroaching upon us. The days are getting shorter, and if you're like me, you want just one more hour of light, to get something done, to accomplish something, to see somebody. It just seems like it's dark in the morning, then it's dark before we get home from work or from school. The darkness seems to be encroaching upon us, and darkness for many of us is a fearful or at least unnerving and intimidating thing. From the very dawn of time, people have fought the darkness, have tried to find ways to keep it at bay, whether through fire or candles and then eventually electricity. Now through perhaps through tablets and cell phones. We're afraid of darkness, it seems. But darkness is not all bad. Creation needs darkness in order to revive and rejuvenate. Creation needs the winter in order to prepare for the spring. Darkness gives us time to reflect and meditate, to be quiet and still, alert and awake. And Advent reminds us that Jesus, the returning one and the one who is coming, is not just the light at the end of the tunnel, but that he walks through the darkness with us. How often do we forget that? He's not just the journey's end, he is the journey itself. And Advent is this wonderful time in which to remember that, to be alert and awake and alive. The truth is, most of us are not very good at waiting. I mean, we hear about Paul in the second reading telling his readers to get ready because the Lord is going to return potentially at any time. Paul was writing just, 15, 20 years after the resurrection, and there was this very strong anticipation that the risen Christ was going to come back any day, any week, any month. But here we are 2,000 years later, and we know that in all likelihood, the returning Christ is not going to come back this afternoon during the Bears game, although that might not be a bad thing. They need all the help they can get. But we know it's not likely to happen. We're not very good at waiting. I was struck, just a couple days ago, Black Friday. Remember when Black Friday actually began on, Friday? But now then it crept forward, so it started at, dawn, 6 o'clock, and then 3 o'clock in the middle of the night, and then midnight. And then this year, some places were opening up for Black Friday at 3 o'clock on Thanksgiving afternoon. We can't even wait till Friday to celebrate Black Friday. I think that's obscene, by the way. I think it's absurd and ridiculous. We're not good at waiting. So what we need to do instead is to live now as if Christ is coming. Because he is. Here all the time. In different ways, in different guises, in different media, in different forms, in different manners, in different encounters, in different experiences. The risen Christ, the Christ to be born, is with us even now. When we least expect it. That's what Advent is all about. Not just getting ready, but being ready. Not just looking afar, but looking close, if you will. Anticipating and preparing ourselves for those moments when the one who came and who will come comes. This is our Advent call. Another retired bishop in the Episcopal Church said, "Hope is the melody of the future. Faith is the act of dancing to it now." Advent is the time when we dance to the melody of the future, looking for, waiting for, being open to, anticipating, seeking, searching, discerning the presence of God in our lives. Because we know on this first day of the year, on this first day of the season, that the one who came, the one who will come, comes.